The panel will deliberate and the audience will be asked to leave. So at this point, well, usually after the 15 to 20 minutes when he talks, there's time for questions. And then everybody will be asked to leave except for the panel, and then we'll talk about his presentation. So at this point, make sure your phones are silent, and please give Jacob your attention, and we'll get going.
Do you want us to do anything with the lights?
No, I think this is good.
Okay.
Oh, you who know more about
Yes, I
handling
know.
lights in here than any of us.
Right.
Okay, so, good morning everybody. I'm Jacob Sander, and this is my Senior X on, as many of you know, directing a play. But, let's go back before anybody knew anything about that, including me. So, yeah. Why is that going to keep happening? Okay. Okay, so, I know I wanted to do something theater related because that's what I do. I do theater, and I plan to keep doing theater into college and as a career if I can. But, if all I did was some kind of theater thing, then it wouldn't be taking a risk. I had to do something that I had never done before. So that left me with three options: producing, directing, or costuming. I didn't want to do costuming because it's effectively a design job just like lighting or sound, which I've done before, where the director says, hey, I want this. And you say, okay, well, here it is. They say, no, I think I want this, and then it goes on and on until someone goes insane. So, I wasn't going to do costuming. Producing. I could have been a producer, I could have done that, but the thing about producing is that while risks are good, and don't get me wrong, directing was a risk, a badly produced play is effectively unsalvageable. Because a badly produced play doesn't have a venue, a budget, or a staff. So, that left me with directing. If I was going to direct, I needed two things. I needed a production company, and I had to decide on a play for that production company, which is where enter my mentor, Mark Puglisi. So, I discussed with Mark Puglisi what production company and what play I would do. He's one of the founders of ACT and has been directing since 7th grade, so he knows ACT very well. Acadia Community Theater. So we decided that the best course of action would be for me to ask if I could do ACT's Christmas play, which introduced a couple of restrictions. One of them being that it had to be a Christmas play. Also that it had to encompass anywhere between 20 and 60 people and have roles for children. So, that narrowing it down to probably less than 1% of all plays that exist, we found the script for The Nutcracker. Not the Nutcracker, but an adaptation of the original Nutcracker that was a play with a small amount of music, which I thought was perfect for ACT. So I brought it before their board and said, I would like to do this play, The Nutcracker. It has a simple set that can be moved from venue to venue, which is something that was necessary. It could fit as many people as I wanted, as there were roles for small children and adults alike. And it was a play that could be produced. The only major budget concern would be costuming, as toy soldiers and things like that had to be in the same costume. So, off of that, I showed this to the ACT board, and they gave me the okay to direct this play, which meant that directing a play was officially my Senior X. So, that meant I needed an essential question. Luckily, I had a question that I always wanted to ask about directing, which was, how can directing a play help me better understand the responsibility held in authority from a director's standpoint as well as an actor's? Basically put, how can directing a play not only help me be learning to direct not only help me be a director, but also an actor? So, speaking of learning to direct, I thought I should probably do that at this point if I was going to direct a play. So, I needed to get sources, such as Notes on Directing, which is a book that was given to me by Heather Dillon when I was given the play by ACT. It's a book full of short bits of advice on directing by a man named Frank Hauser, and some of the notes were useful and some of them were lesserly so, such as a good one was don't overstudy the script. Personally, I believe that a script that should be learned back and forth. But the point this book gave was that if you overstudy the script, you are anticipating exactly what's going to happen at any moment. And as a director, if you are watching the play expecting what's going to happen, then you can't see it from an audience's standpoint so that you can make a good play for that audience. On the other hand, other notes were a little heavy-handed for a community theater's Christmas play, such as, realize that the human experience is one of suffering and the resolution of suffering. Yeah, okay, calm down, Nietzsche. So, but this actually does apply to the Nutcracker, as Nutcracker is a play about the suffering of the Nutcracker and the curse that has been put upon him. But this didn't necessarily apply to a play where the actress playing the Nutcracker was 12 years old, which is another good point. That's the cast. There are a lot of children in this cast. I think I had 51 people that I cast, 4 or 5 drops, then I gained a couple. Probably 40 of 47 people were under the age of 14, which meant that I had to, and it seems like a lot more than that when you have to get them all on stage, right here, and tell them all what to do at a certain time. But as long as I was calm but firm and told them exactly what they needed to do and ran it enough, within 8 to 10 hours of the rehearsal process, they basically knew the basics of even the most difficult blocking. So from then on, errors were sometimes on the actor's forgetfulness, but mostly on my part, which brings me to my next point. I have never directed a play before, so there are many small errors, such as this. This line is not how you're supposed to block people. Lines are bad. And what you're supposed to do is triangles. But I didn't know that until about halfway through blocking when Mark Carrigan told me. So to help me with all this stuff I had never done before and didn't know was Angel Hockman, sitting right there. She was my stage manager and an integral part of the rehearsal and performance process. Because this is my first time directing, I could say my vision and I could show people what I was trying to have them do, but when something went wrong or something didn't work or something just was not how you're supposed to do things in plays, she was there to help me do what needed to actually be done. But she couldn't help me with my biggest downfall of all of this, which was scheduling. And I hear some laughs from people who know about the scheduling. So, realistically, what I should have done in the beginning is had a full schedule by the time I had auditions. I should have had an entire schedule that said every rehearsal. But as a new director, I had no idea I had no idea how much I could accomplish in a single rehearsal, and I didn't want to be stuck doing something for rehearsal and having to change the schedule every week because we didn't get what we had to get done, which caused an attendance problem, and I never actually managed to resolve it. But I guess it's just because I was a first-time director and I couldn't find a way to. So, in the end of this, as being a director, directing a play has helped me understand the stress from directors, not only from a director's point of view and not only from a director's point of view and how to be a director, but also how to act under a director and how to be a technician under a director, helping me understand that actors should do certain things. Like if you need to try something, or you want to try something, and it doesn't conflict with blocking already, if you do it and the director likes it, they will tell you. And it makes it so much easier on the director if you do. And otherwise, this taught me that directing is something I enjoy and I would like to do in the future. I still plan to go to college for sound design, but if I can also do something in directing, that would be fantastic. And yeah, there are my citations. That's it. Any questions? Yeah?
I just want to say, Jacob, don't beat yourself up too much about the schedule, because currently we're in a new show and we have a schedule that goes from day one to the last day, and we're already changing it when we get. So that is much more than any first-time director should have to take on. But my question is, how challenging did you find it as a first-time director to not only be doing a play, but to be doing a mini musical where you also had to teach singing?
What really was more of a problem than the singing was the choreography, where I'm not a choreographer, as many of you know. I'm not that great of a dancer either. So I couldn't do actual choreography, but more kind of steps to a beat. And that was stressful because there are that many children in the cast, and they sort of, I mean, they get what they're trying to do, but sometimes it doesn't always execute as you would like it to. Alden?
Can you just explain what blocking is?
Oh, right, sorry, yeah. If anybody doesn't know what the term blocking means, blocking is not choreography because it's not dance moves, but it's things that you're doing on stage, like walking around or interacting with something, as long as it's not choreography. Annie? So, opening night was less stressful than I expected. Well, less stressful in a way and more stressful in a way, because the morning before opening night, the morning of opening night, we had a performance, or effectively another dress rehearsal for all the middle schools. And so while that performance dress rehearsal didn't go the best, it definitely solidified that we could do the play, and we were going to do it that night, and it was going to go at least as good as it went during the day. Yes?
You mentioned the scheduling issue. Were there any other issues that arose during the rehearsal period that you were able to work through, or with the help of others? Or?
So, the working with children was a little difficult, as I have not always been the best with, being my patience, which I think I managed to keep mostly in check during the rehearsal process. There were some problems we had with communication between myself and our set builder. So the set didn't turn out exactly as I would like. As you see the streamers in the back there, there was supposed to be a very large changeover, but that wasn't really something as much to work through as something I had and just had to say, okay, well, that's how it's going to go, and that's fine. It's gonna be like it is. Yeah.
How did you manage the costumes? You had mentioned that in the beginning.
So the costumes were actually done by my mother, right there, Patricia Savoy. So, yeah, the costumes were, I don't know a whole lot about them. The most difficult costume was probably, right here is Ezra Halkett, who was the Mouse King, and he rides a Segway. He uses a Segway for his daily transportation. So we went through a lot of iterations of the way to costume that into the Mouse King, which we ended up having a mouse head on his Segway, and also him as a mouse. Otherwise, costuming I think went pretty smoothly. If that answers your question. Okay. Yeah?
How would you say like the final product turned out? Like, was it kind of in line with your vision, or were you happy with it?
I didn't say anything about that. Yeah, so the original vision was very similar to the final product. Obviously, it was a little bit more fantastical because I was trying to imagine as much as I could in this world that is taking places and not on stage. But the major changes were in set, not in blocking and in costuming. The major changes were sets that changed and things that I didn't expect or quite know what was going to happen until the last day before the first production.
Alright, well, just being mindful of the time, we can, unless anybody has one more question to ask? Is everybody good? Okay, so at this stage of the process, we're gonna ask everybody but the panel to leave. And if you stay nearby,
Yeah.
we will send you word as quickly as we can.
Yep.